Welcome to the What's Your Weird Story podcast.
So what do you want to do?
Well, let's tell them what we're doing then, Bear. We're taking a break from weird stories this week, and we're taking a sidestep out of our tour of Weirdsville, and we are going to play for you, or you're going to play it because you're listening to it, but we're bringing you our side project.
Yeah, Spinjamarama. This is the first one.
Yeah, it's been much anticipated and long awaited. We figured that, now's a good time to go ahead and bring it out for you guys.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I think people are going to be intrigued by what we've come up with. So
yeah, it's fun. It's cool. It's it's basically if your favorite part of this show is us talking, then this is for you.
Oh, bless you.
Oh yeah. All right. So without further ado, let's drop that needle and let it spin Jamarama. Well, all right. Barry, that was a cool little intro tune you wrote for us.
Well, thanks, man. I try.
I appreciate that. Hey, how you guys doing? It is me, Adam Beebe, and I am with, as always, Barry Johnston.
Yo.
You probably recognize our voices from our main podcast, What's Your Weird Story? Chances are, if you're listening to this, you listen to that. If you don't, well, you should. So this is completely different, though. This is Spinjamarama.
We're switching gears a little bit. Not really switching gears, because we do talk about music a little bit on the What's Your Weird Story podcast, but we're kind of taking it to the next level because we love music so much. A lot of times you and I, we will sit and just gab about bands or records or whatever. And we kind of thought, why don't we just do something like that where we talk about records? When you first were talking about this, the first thing that came into my mind was, why not maybe do some things? There's a lot of review shows out there. Why don't we do something a little bit different, at least out of our comfort zone a little bit? So we picked a bunch of different random stuff that you and I, we may or may not listen to very much of. A lot of it is kind of something that's out of our realm of taking time and listening to. So so it's cool. It's a different way to do things. We'll probably get into bands that both of you and I are really into and get into that kind of stuff and do deep dives. But the idea of listening to other records that we would probably not listen to is I think it's a cool angle.
Yeah, man, I agree. It's something that, when we started honing in on that, it was stuff that bands we may be familiar with or just know the name of, we've seen around forever.
Yeah.
That we hadn't really been exposed to too much, or maybe we've been a little bit exposed to in the past, but we wanted to educate ourselves more on it. And so we picked a band at random. And because we got a random spinning wheel with we put all the band's names on, and we probably came up easily with like 50 bands.
Oh, just easily, and that's without even thinking.
Right, exactly. So we're going to spin it, and when we're done today, we're going to spin it again here live on the air, and we'll announce what the next one will be. But yeah, so we picked a couple at random, and we're just going to, we listened to probably the most well-known or well-regarded or whatever albums. We'll pick one out, and we'll take some time to really get into it, listen to it for, a few weeks or however long we need, really digest it, and come back and talk about it like we do our normal stuff.
That's right.
Like just off air, like we talk about how we talk music off air. But so that's the whole idea of it. And this is it's going to be a every once in a while deal.
Yeah, as we can do it. What we're going to do is we're going to run this under the What's Your Weird Story umbrella, but these are going to be like, for lack of a better term, a side project,
Yeah.
And so we're going to come out with these just kind of as we get to them. And it does come down to us having enough time to listen to them properly, listen to these records, really give them some time. A lot of times when people review records, I don't think they really sit with them for very long. And that's something that I kind of want to do. I don't want to cheat, any artist out of a good listen. So, that's the idea.
Yeah. So beyond just being a couple of, close to middle-aged white dudes that like music a whole lot, because, how many else are there out there that are like us? We have a little bit of a pedigree, our credentials, in music. Barry here is, he is a legit audio engineer extraordinaire.
Wow. You're too kind. You're too kind.
No. Yeah, he's recorded. So he's recorded bands in studio, and he's produced albums on his own. He's also done just about every single thing you can do on a tour as a member of the band or working with or for a band. He's done the house sound. He's done all sort of guitar tech, drum tech. You name it.
Production manager, tour manager, selling merch, everything. I've basically done it. So
so he's done all of that. Plus, he is a singer and a songwriter and a musician.
That's my first love.
Yeah. So that's the angle that he looks at things when he listens. That he uses all of those resources and that education to take an approach at from what he listens to. That's the filter he uses.
Right. That's I think that's important to talk about too, because you come at it from an angle of, you also played in bands and toured, and you did the whole enchilada, but you're also a fan of getting in depth to records and having emotional ties, and it's just two different ways of looking at art, really, and music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we thought, hey, this would make an interesting balance in to how to approach the review these albums. So anyway, we hope that that's not too long of an introduction, and we hope that this is something that piques your interest and that you'll want to hear us talk more about. But let's put our money where our shakers are. No, wait. Let's put our money where our mouth is and shake our money makers, and let's review an album.
Let's do that.
So our first album that we've randomly selected to go into was Frank Zappa, and the first artist was Frank Zappa, and we chose Apostrophe, which was supposed to be, I guess, his most successful album.
Yeah,
his most recognized. Would you say?
Yeah, it was. It sold the most copies. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Right now, and Zappa was one that you were interested in.
Yeah,
exploring.
Let me just explain this. Let me explain the reason why is because as a music lover, sometimes you like to push your boundaries, and sometimes you try to get yourself out of your comfort zone. And Frank Zappa has always been one of those guys that like musicians listen to. You know what I mean? Your favorite guy. And so I've tried to listen to Zappa in the past, and I just kind of put him on there just because I was like, well, that could be cool. Let's go listen to and really try to pay attention to what he was doing, even though it's not in like my wheelhouse.
Right. Which is the whole point of this,
Right.
trying to
Exactly.
explore, expose ourselves
Right.
to new things. So,
And there might be records that we love, that we do.
and there might be some that we hate.
Right.
And this one,
yeah. This one was tough, right?
This one was tough.
It was tough.
Yeah.
It was.
So, all right. So let me give a little bit of historical context here, because this is my side from being the former record store employee. I don't want to say music snob. I don't think I was ever too much of a music snob, but anyway.
Yeah.
Zappa is one of those that you're supposed to really appreciate. You're supposed to like, because he's Frank Zappa, right?
Right.
He carries this heaviness with him. He carries this, respectability and
right.
and he is a driving force, and but he's definitely, he's on the underground kind of side of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this album came out in 1974. It was recorded in sessions between 1969 and early 1974.
Mm-hmm.
It is his 18th album.
18th
which
album. Isn't that insane?
18th, dude. And that wasn't even near the end. I don't know how many he did altogether, but that wasn't near the end, dude. Because this is 74 and he was just kicking off. So
right.
So yeah, here's to give you an idea, Bear, of what else was around that year, what the scene was with new music of that year.
Yep.
Here's some of the albums that came out. Planet Waves by Bob Dylan.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Radio City by Big Star.
Wow, I love Big Star, man.
I know you do.
Yeah.
Rock and Roll Animal by Lou Reed.
Wow.
Rush by Rush, their first album, the self-titled album by Rush.
Wow. Hey, rest in peace.
Neil Peart, man.
Oh my gosh, man. Dude, I've been on such a Rush kick, dude. Like,
yeah.
I got emotional, man. Like for the past 2 days, man, I've been mourning Neil Peart because he's one of those guys that's one in a gazillion, Yeah,
for sure, man. For sure. Also that year was Queen 2 by Queen.
Wow.
Diamond Dogs by David Bowie.
Wow.
Too Much, Too Soon by New York Dolls.
Wow.
461 Ocean Boulevard by Eric Clapton.
Damn.
Dark Horse by George Harrison.
Wow.
Kiss by Kiss.
Wow.
Autobahn by Kraftwerk.
Wow, that's a big one.
And that is a huge one, dude.
Yeah.
And one of my personal all-time favorite albums, Here Come the Warm Jets by Brian Eno.
Yeah, Brian Eno, man.
That's a huge year in music, man. And
huge.
Massive diversity in just this short list. I mean, I think Dolly Parton also put out Jolene that year. Wow. I mean, just massive.
Doesn't that blow your mind? Because, if you look at that kind of musical diversity and put it up against today's musical diversity, there is none. That is, and that's the thing about Frank Zappa that I think I'll say is the most admirable thing about the guy. He never did what people wanted him to do. He stuck to his guns and he did his art the way that he wanted to do it. Mm-hmm. Regardless, he wasn't a great singer. He was an incredibly accomplished musician on every other front, and just his music was odd and strange, and that's what he did, and he did it very well. And this record is no exception.
Yes, he did. Yeah. So let's go ahead and let's jump into it. Overall, what was your first impression of the album?
It's quirky as fuck.
Barry, I think you're being kind.
It's quirky as fuck.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
It's challenging.
Mm-hmm. I think the way I when from the first track, it reminds me of the first track is "Don't Eat the Yellow Snow."
Yeah,
and the first 3 tracks are kind of like they're
like one song.
It's like one song. It's like a for it's like almost like a concept album,
exactly.
But then it breaks off.
Yeah.
So I thought that's where we were going. I thought we were going concept album, but
right.
But yeah, as soon as we get into that first song, and I'm just reminded of every time I've tried to get into Zappa in the past.
Yeah.
Where the music is really good. It's technically really good.
Yes.
But it's noodly.
Right.
Does that make any sense?
It is musical jerking off.
Yes.
And this is why, for me, is not kind of my thing, because I don't enjoy that either. I'm not a real noodly kind of a guy. Like, I like meat potatoes kind of stuff. I like a good hook, but I'll say this, man, the recording is spot on. It's fantastic. It holds up today. It really does. The production's great. Bob Ludwig had something to do with that. He's a world-renowned mastering engineer, but it shows him as tech. He was a tech on this record. I don't know what that could mean. That he helped sculpt sounds. It could mean that he was in the studio actually like soldering gear. It could have been a bunch of things, but he had his hands on this record. So sonically speaking, it's fantastic, and it's fantastic, and would warrant a guy's name like that. Also, Bob Hughes is another engineer on the record. They used a bunch of guys because, like you said, it was recorded over a span of 5 years. So different studios, different engineers. Back in those days, they didn't spend. They didn't technically call anybody a mastering engineer or a mixing engineer. So it's kind of, the credits are kind of weird. It just has engineer next to guy's name. So you kind of get, you don't know what exactly that they did. But usually what would happen is you'd get done with the session, and then they would do a mix, and then that would be kind of your final copy, and I'm sure Zappa himself had a heavy hand in it. Yes.
Because he was, these are extremely constructed songs.
Right.
That's one thing I noted is that these are like really, like, even though they sound, they're very noodly, and then there definitely a lot of it comes probably from jamming. There's also like just a lot of orchestratedness to these songs. Right.
And that too is another good point about Zappa, is that he's really a composer. And he's known with working with some of the greatest musicians of our time. And we talked about this before, but Jack Bruce plays on a song. Jack Bruce from Cream plays on Apostrophe, the title track off the record. But you were telling me that you found something on there that said that Jack said that he didn't think that he played on that song, which is funny.
Zappa noted him as being bass on that song, but that's apparently a kind of controversial thing, because Jack Bruce himself said that he didn't play bass. He came in and like just did some like added some like just. With his cellos, added some sounds with his cello, and did some pretty, weird stuff there. But but he doesn't recall actually playing bass.
That's funny. What's funny about that is because I saw an interview with Zappa talking about Jack Bruce playing on that song, and he said, "I found it very difficult to play with the guy because he was so fucking noodly," is what he said. He said he doesn't play root notes. He's like, he didn't fucking stick to the root notes, so I found it very difficult to play with him. And which is funny, if that's the case, that he didn't play on it, would be hilarious. But yeah, no, and there's so many other people. The background singers on that record are fantastic. Like, You know, all the quirky weird shit. Go ahead.
Here's the thing. One of those uncredited background singers is Tina Turner.
No shit. Which is
pretty cool.
She's nowhere on the listing, man. No shit. Album credit.
Right, but here.
Wow.
Pulled it up on the Wikipedia, and there she is, which is really cool and that's one of those things. This is, a lot of like really extremely talented professional musicians.
Yeah.
Wanted to and did work with Zappa. I mean, he's got George Duke on here as well. I mean, he's got amazing people working with him because
that's amazing.
People respected what he was doing. Of
course, man.
And this was so weird and so avant-garde.
Yes,
for that time of from when music was coming out. I mean, so different, so strange. And
he was blending a bunch of different styles of music too. He's some rock, some jazz, some blues. I mean, just all over the place, man. Some big band type stuff. Like he did some crazy stuff, and I think that his in order to keep that intact, to have the kind of mind to write that kind of stuff, especially back then when we didn't have the technology to record demos like we do now, where everyone had a computer, has a computer now. They had a 4-track, or if they were lucky. So he was doing it in a time that was a much more difficult time to record those things, and make a roadmap for the record. Because what you would do is you would go in and you record. The pre-production was basically a warm-up to when, you're going to record all the songs, get them kind of the way you want it before you go in the studio so you don't waste a bunch of time while you're in the studio. And so I have a feeling that a lot of pre-production had to go on these types of records because there's so much going on.
I would imagine. I would imagine.
But
I would imagine. But again, that's why it took so long probably to, record this. And I think in some ways this is I guess all albums are, recorded beforehand and put together, but this is like, kind of bits and pieces from here and there, for the, over a couple years period but I guess it's thematically, kind of goes through stuff. So,
right. No, it's good. I think that, like we said, this may not be something that is necessarily in my wheelhouse, but my whole goal is to find something positive with these records, and that's kind of the way I feel about it. The musicality of it is just ridiculous, man. It's fucking. These guys are all super high caliber players, and it comes across, and you can feel, just the way that music was recorded back in the day. It just has an organic feeling to it. It doesn't, for sure. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel contrived. Even if it's not your thing, you can at least get that from it, that there's a lot of organic stuff going on. Yeah.
Music was amazing because you've got, like you said, you've got kind of improv sounding stuff. You got stuff that's like almost like a commercial jingle. You've got jazzy stuff. You got some really cool, like, prog rock stuff. You got, definitely groove, and you've got like some like, so psych blues type stuff,
Right.
But the thing that really kind of put me off is the lyrics.
Right.
The lyrics are. I know Zappa wasn't overall he did a lot of comedy type stuff or, silly kind of things. And to me, it's just like, if I was like a 14-year-old stoner, I would probably really love this kind of stuff, having not heard, other kind of stuff, because like, Don't Eat the Yellow Snow, and, we talk about dog doo-doo and pee and just rub it in somebody's face and just, I don't know, man. It's just like, I know that, again, 1974, that is much more subversive than
right.
You know, a lot of other musicians were talking about, or a lot of stuff like that. But overall, man, you know, that's the first part. Then the cosmic debris, when he's talking about like psychics and mediums and stuff, but it's like almost like a skit, you know, or like or a Shel Silverstein kind of poem kind of thing.
Right. Yeah,
I'll tell you, there's two standout tracks for me. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
There's two standout tracks for me. One of them is track number 7, or track 2 on side 2, and that's the title track, Apostrophe.
Yep.
And I was like, when the first time I heard that, I was like, this is fucking sick.
Yeah.
You know, this is good. Now, here's also the exception, is that it's a completely instrumental track.
Right.
And so I'm really I was really able to focus on the musicianship.
Right.
And it's more proggy. It's not as noodly. I mean, it's got the noodly bits, but it's not as noodly as the rest of it.
Yes.
You know, some of the other songs are like, do you remember the movie Amadeus?
Oh yeah.
You know, and there's that point where the emperor comes in and he's like, he says his review of this new tune that has been written for him was too many notes.
Right.
You know, so a lot of the album to me is like too many notes.
100%.
You know,
actually,
but again,
no, I agree.
That's musicianship versus.
That is my biggest, thing when it comes to bands with being too masturbatory in their musicality. Now, I will say that a lot of the vocal stuff that throws me off is the talk sing. Like, he's the king of the talk sing guy. Like, he doesn't actually sing. He kind of just, does these, funny voices over the rhythm. That's a big, for me, probably one of the big downfalls. While I think that the musicality is great, they can obviously freaking play themselves out of a goddamn, insert whatever kind of thing you want to in there. But I don't think it's I don't think it'll ever be my thing. But, Zappa was known to be very prolific. He recorded a lot of shit. Like, they say that when he died, the amount of music that he left recorded was like floor to ceiling. It's in a warehouse or something like that. But they said like he had enough material to release a record like every year for like 500 years or some shit. I don't know. It was something insane. It was like, wow, dude. Like, not only that, but like his contribution to recording and pushing the envelope and inventing things, like that comes into play when I'm listening to what he's doing. I say the same thing about the Beatles. The Beatles are one of the most important bands, not just because they wrote the best songs, but like what they gave to the recording industry. Their way of looking at recording made the industry have to change and pushed it into the future because they wanted to do shit that nobody could do. It wasn't possible for the machinery that they had in order to do what they wanted to do. Same thing with Frank Zappa. He did the same thing, man. He pushed it. He pushed the envelope in every way that you could push it, and he was able to make a living at it. And that says a lot about a guy. That says a lot about an artist. He's a true artist. He's more of a Jackson Pollock kind of a dude. He just was the kind of guy that could give a fuck about any, recognition. He didn't. His whole thing was just he wanted to be true to himself, and I got to give him props for that. I'm just not the biggest fan of the music.
Yeah. I agree, man. I totally agree on all those points. I definitely think that the Jackson Pollock was a good analogy, being that somebody who can actually perform technically well and and make things that are nice and pretty, but who wants to do things that are different, that are expand the whole genre or the whole concept of what you can do with art, with music, with these things. So
right.
So yeah, I'm totally right there with you, man. There's one other song. It's Uncle Remus. That this is a real standout for me. First, I was like, oh, I don't know, man, because Uncle Remus is now that's a term. Uncle Remus is from the Disney movie Song of the South. You remember that, right?
Yeah.
Zippity Doo-Dah.
Right.
Well, that's a movie that Disney has vaulted and probably permanently vaulted because it has some really outdated racial stereotypes. And Uncle Remus, who was the kindly slave, who in the movie, or former slave, I can't remember because it's been so long since I've seen it.
Right.
But he was the main character, and so to name the song after him in 1974 is completely different than to name something after him in 2020. But
right.
I was kind of a little bit, I don't know. But then you listen to it and you get into this, the lyrics, which are serious. It's the only kind of like straightforward serious song in the whole thing. And it's a reflection on Zappa is talking about how there's, the race issues that are happening still concurrently in 1974, where there's still a lot of problem with racism. And Zappa was somebody who was very like, he worked with anybody, any race, any creed or whatever.
Right.
If you were good at doing, your craft, if you were a musician who could sing well or you could play well or do whatever, and, and could mesh with him, he didn't care. And so he was very anti-racism and he was very active in that. So this is a song that has some lyrics about, going and knocking over all of the jockey statues in rich people's lawns.
Right.
Those historically, blacker than black, statues of jockeys that would be, and that there's racist stereotypes. And so this is a song about him trying to, reject and smash those kind of racial stereotypes and stuff. And I really that's really cool. When I did some digging on it and found out more behind it, that's really, I just a lot of respect for Zappa, as a person,
right,
and as an artist.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. I think that's, I think that is, that's the best you can ask for as an artist. You leave something for people to listen to; they can take it or leave it. But at the end of the day, you leave your legacy behind, and everyone else can try to figure it out. And I think that's what he did. He sort of lived a life of mystery, and he lived in this world, this sort of bubble that he created, and is responsible for creating or giving a lot of musicians great careers. Man, I remember there was the drummer Terry Bozzio, famous guy. He got his start with Zappa as a young guy. Zappa gave him a shot, and he became one of the world renowned drummers. And I got to see him. He came into a class that I was in, and taught us a little bit. And he was just a really nice guy. But cool. That's what I think of when I think of Frank Zappa.
Yeah, and Zappa is hugely influential.
Yeah,
and you can see that in the musicianship and the engineering side, but also like I mean, you can like bands that you could immediately point at and say, were definitely influenced by Zappa or like Ween.
Right.
To me, Ween is like, little, like the little kids version of, well, maybe not little kids version, but they did all the early stuff in particular, where it was just them on a 4-track and just experimenting and seeing what they could do.
Right.
And then writing silly nonsense, drug influenced songs.
Right.
But
right.
still making a huge following and career off of that, and that's very Zappa to me.
Right.
The Flaming Lips to me,
I was going to say that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that maybe that's the legacy that he leaves, is that, like you said, he created a world where anything's possible. You push the boundaries of what it is that makes you uncomfortable, and good music should do that. And I really truly believe that if rock and roll music in particular is supposed to make you feel uncomfortable, there should be an element of I want to be scared by something enough to where I want to be intrigued. Like that idea is really not available now. It's all been done. Everything's very safe. There's great shit being done right now. Don't get me wrong, but it's not done in the mainstream. It's
for sure.
You know what I'm saying? It's not readily available. You got to dig for it. But that's what good music should do. Good music should make you question some things about yourself. Do I like this music? Is there something I can find positive about this music? Is there something that I can relate to in this music? And there may or may not be. And this is one of those records where it's not a pop record. Now,
not at all.
In his world, it is, because I'm just going off the. He's got songs that are in the 4.5 minute range, which is pretty good. Considering that some of his shit was really nuts, but it plays like the length of a pop record, but it was not a pop record. This is like if Syd Barrett, this is like a Syd Barrett thing, solo shit. Where it's like he's talking about fucking vegetables and shit. You know what I mean? Like,
right? It's
just off the wall, avant-garde shit, and it takes a certain kind of a person that can connect with it. It's not for everybody.
Yeah, I agree, man. So I guess the ultimate, we get down to it. Are we going to reinvent some kind of a rating system here?
Sure.
Okay, so I guess out of 5, I don't know. What a good trademarkable. Out of 5 apostrophes, I would give this. I'll give this a 3.
Wow.
And but because of the inventiveness, the historical context, just how, the artisticness and historical context, where it was that it came out at this time. The fact that I can listen to it in the background, and not be bothered by it.
Right.
It's something that I could definitely, if I worked at a head shop, it's something to definitely put on repeat and and never have to think about. I'll give it a 3, man.
Okay.
It's not something that I'm going to actively listen to again. There's, like I said, there's 2 standout tracks, and only one of them is something that I'm like, yeah, I can listen to this. But even with Apostrophe, the title track, it's not something that I'm just like, man, I really just gotta hear this. It's just something when it does come on, I'm like, yeah, I feel that groove. And because there's one of the things that throughout this entire album that I really noticed was there's a bass line, and it may be Zappa playing, and it may be your boy Bruce Jack Bruce playing it, but there's a bass line that guides you through all of this, and that's the one thing that really stands out and that I could grab onto for the ride.
Right.
So, so I'll give it a 3 apostrophes out of 5.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite genre with the comedy and all that stuff and the noodliness, but it doesn't suck. Yeah. And and I can appreciate it
for sure. I'm going to go 2.5. I go 2.5.
Okay.
It's in it. I mean, actually, you talked me up from a 2. You talked me up from a 2 because I got to give credit to the guy for everything else that he's done. And Zappa fans all around the world are hating my guts right now. Mine too. But it is what it is, man. It's just not my thing. It doesn't mean that it's not great, and I could see where people would be into it. I get it, but it's just not. It's just not my cup of tea. But again, the playing is amazing. His you can tell he's at a really prolific time in his life where he's just going and he's just creating the way that he sees that he should create, man, and putting out the amount of records that he puts out. It's amazing the amount of dedication you can tell that he's put into the little nuances in every bit of these songs because they're so all over the place, man. The map, I mean, if you were to map this stuff out, man, it'd be all over the place. So I got to give him props for that. Yeah, I mean, he's a legend, man. He's a legend for a reason. And yeah,
for real.
So thank you, Frank Zappa, for the music, man, and everything else that you've done for us.
Sure. That was our first one. There's Zappa Down, and normally we're only going to do one album. We're really going to only focus on one album, one artist, one band per episode. We don't really know exactly everything we're doing just yet, but that's the idea.
Right. Well, I'm sure. I'm sure at some point it'll inform us what we need to do.
Yeah. We're all about organic here.
So we're gonna do a double header now. Sorry. So we're since this is the first one of these Spinjamaramas, we're going to actually do a double header. So we're going to get to our next record, which is a record by Dwight Yoakam called This Time. Okay, this is a record that I spent a couple of weeks listening to. I did that because it's a record that it really, the first time I listened to it, I liked it immediately, and I wanted to give a few good listens to really get into it, man. And I gotta say, I was a sort of a fan from the sidelines before of Dwight Yoakam, but really kind of getting into this record, dude, I just love what he does. I really do.
Yeah, man. I'd heard a couple of these songs before for sure, and I mean, I liked 1,000 Miles from Nowhere.
Yeah, is
a great song, and Fast as You, man.
Yeah, I know.
Those are great. Those are bangers. And those are ones that I remember hearing on the radio roughly when this came out, and being like, not being them sticking out from all the country stuff that I wouldn't listen to.
I think context context is important here because we're in high school at this time still.
Right.
This is unfortunately we were at the precipice at a time when in our youth we did not like country music, or at least I did. And I'll speak for myself. I'm not going to speak for you, but I hated anything that had to do with country music because that's just where we grew up. Everybody listened to country music and it just drove you crazy. And I think I lumped him into that pop country world. Yeah. And that was so wrong. It was that was a wrong. Yeah, that was not the way, those songs on this record, like you had pointed out, sort of the single or the standout tracks, they're the ones that you listen to. You heard them all the time. You heard people talking and singing about it. You know what I mean? But there's so much more to this record. And I got to say, my personal favorite song is the title track, This Time. It's just his vocal aerobics that he does. That's not easy to do, to sing that way. It reminds me a lot of like Buck Owens.
Yeah.
My dad, I grew up sort of on Buck Owens because my dad loved Buck Owens. And it reminds me of that so much, man. That like Bakersfield country, just like twangy, not afraid to get up and do the trill into like a shrill type, like that real just honky tonk country thing. I love it. I just love it.
Yeah. Yeah, this album definitely has a lot of honky tonk, a lot of classic country, a lot of like rockabilly. This is the school that Dwight Yoakam went to. He studied, the masters of that kind of craft. You can hear,
big time.
And you're going to hear me say this repeat these names several times over, but like you can hear the Roy Orbison. You can hear Conway Twitty and George Jones, and and even some Johnny Cash in there.
Yeah, you're right.
These are, just such amazing, like traditional stuff, which was a lot different from what else was coming out in the music world at that time.
Yes.
You want to hear some albums that came out in 1993?
Yeah, please.
Check it out. This is also probably one of the reasons why we didn't listen to it, you and I, knowing you and me.
Yeah.
All right, 1993. These are the albums that came out that year. In Utero by Nirvana.
Oh, God.
Bjork's debut.
Oh, man.
Siamese Dream, Smashing Pumpkins.
Oh, my God.
Doggy Style by Snoop Dogg.
Of course, man. Listen to it. We listen to that record every day, man.
Oh, yeah, dude. Breeder's Last Splash. I love that album.
Yeah, so good.
Verses by Pearl Jam.
Wow.
Radiohead, Pablo Honey, their first album. So good.
Yep.
When they were a guitar band.
Yes. My favorite era of them is when they were a guitar band.
It's good stuff, man. I'm honestly, as far as Radiohead goes, I love them. Every album is a different stage of development and growth and experimentation and artistry, and each one of them I think is the best album because they're all good.
It's true. That's true.
But also that year, Counting Crows, August and Everything After.
That's a great record. It's
a great record, dude. It's I have a lot of emotional attachment to that record, but it's a great record as well.
That was a record that I don't think gets really, not to get too far off on a tangent on that, but, and these other records you're talking about, but that was another record that was like, it was under the radar a little bit. They got recognition for it, but it is a solid solid record. Solid record.
Yeah. A couple others that were a little bit more under the radar that year, but for me were big ones that would be big ones shortly after is Icky Metal by Archers of Loaf.
Yeah, which is fantastic. Oh, man.
Transit Random Noise with Transit Random Noise Burst with Announcements by Stereolab.
Yeah.
That was a tongue twister for me for some reason. I love Stereolab and they were great, and that was one of their early ones. And then to wrap it all up, and this is one that I've never been big on, but definitely, this for you is probably going to be more so, was Tool's Undertow came out in 1993.
Yeah, that was a big one. That was, again, that just puts you in that headspace of what time we're talking about. We're talking about a ton of great records.
Dude,
really,
it was a great year for music.
We were lucky to live in a time when the last great music revolution happened. There was so much great shit happening. There were so many great records out there and great bands. But you're right. And Dwight was in that, same time frame, but he was, as far as I was concerned, he was coming from, a completely different world, and I wanted nothing to do with it. And it's taken me some time to and I'll say this, that shortly after high school, I started to get into, making records and songwriting and stuff. And I started to really appreciate other styles of music. And so I think that's the reason why I've sort of, over the years, have really gravitated toward all kinds of music. I just love music. I really do. If it's well done, I'm a big fan. But I have to say this right now. I want to give credit where credit is due. And Pete Anderson, who is the guitar player on this record, he also produced the record. And he is a heavy hitter, man. He worked with some really, really great artists. Jackson Browne, the Meat Puppets, Buck Owens, of course, Roy Orbison, all those, you were talking before about what you hear in that record. Well, there's a good reason why. I mean, there is a thick pedigree of musicians. There's, a ton of guys that played on the record, but also the unsung hero, in my opinion, on records a lot of times is the engineer, the recording engineer. This is the guy who is in charge of putting mics where they need to be, making sure that the instrument or who's being recorded is done in a way that is capturing the performance, capturing the color, if you will, that will be the defining color to put onto the record. And he just did a great job. It was recorded, as far as I could tell, man. I tried to do a little research on this, but there's not a lot of information. But I did find an article that that Dusty Wakeman wrote, and it says that they recorded it at Mad Dog Studios. So I think that's where it was done. But when you listen to the record, man, like, to me, it's the perfect. It's stripped down. It sounds great because it's well recorded, but nothing is overdone. Like
I would agree with that.
Yeah, it sounds like a band. It sounds like a band record. To me, that's kind of the testing ground to, like, what makes a great record is, hopefully a record that sounds like a band playing.
Yeah. I think there's enough polish on this that it's crisp and it sounds good. Yeah. But it's not like overly produced pop generic like a lot of the other what was at this time in country. What was the trend that was going on? When you had like Toby Keith and that's another important and all that.
Yeah, because all that stuff is all Nashville produced stuff. One thing I was reading about him is that he got fed up with Nashville, so he moved to L.A. and he kind of did his own thing. And that says a lot because especially as a country artist, man, you need Nashville to play ball, and for him to go and do this his own way, it really. I think I hear it so much more in the records now that I'm listening to them, coming from that point of view. Like, he's not doing what was popular at that time.
No, not at all. He was a rebel at that. I mean, like, he was a rebel in country music at that time. Yeah. Because he was less poppy, and he wasn't in that vein with Garth Brooks. Right. And man, I love me some Garth Brooks, but Garth is Garth. You know what it is. And Randy Travis and Toby Keith and stuff like that. Right. And a lot of like, that contemporary 90s pop country sound that as it was transitioning from, the 70s.
Right. Country and Western.
80s country, Western to pop country. Right. To what it is, I guess, today. I don't really know. I don't pay attention to it. It's not my genre.
Well,
it's pop in general.
It's awful. It is awful. I can't believe that there is no sense of what country music is anymore. When you listen to country music anymore, honestly, you're listening to pop, like you're just listening to pop radio. It all sounds the same. Like
the twang.
Yeah, I mean, if that. I mean, you get some stuff that's like R&B influence, which to me, I'm just being honest, man. Why would you do that? There just is nothing. There's nothing tasteful about it. Hip hop and R&B needs to be hip hop and R&B, man. It doesn't need to be watered down by, a steel guitar once in a while, or You know what I mean, man? It's just like,
hey, old man, this is the post everything world,
right?
Where you can take all genres and put them in the digital blender of, Pro Tools or whatever, and you can make whatever you want and put it up on, SoundCloud and it'll be popular, I guess. I don't know. I'm so unplugged from music anymore that and I'm fine with it because I don't care. I like what I like, but at the same time, I guess we're trying to expose ourselves to more stuff. So,
right. And that's the thing too, is there's a ton of great shit being, that's happening right now. There really is. There are. And I keep my ear to the ground. I listen to a lot of new bands because I want to hear what's going on, and I want to be inspired, and I want to see what the next generation is doing. And there are some bands out there that give me hope, but for the most part, man, like just as far as what's happening on the radio, to me, radio is so outdated, and it's been outdated for a long time. I'll say that it's been since I haven't listened to the radio since I got out of high school, really. That's how long it's been, because my world evolved around the underground and punk rock and hardcore and, just stuff that was not on the surface, that would, like, the real stuff is always happening in a basement somewhere, Yeah. Kids are throwing shows and they're getting their minds blown by the next like thing, By the time it reaches your ears on the radio, it's already done. It's finished. But that's why I think, again, why I'm liking what Dwight is doing here, because he's doing it his way. He's not playing ball. He, for the most part, it seems like he has creative control over his career and what's happened. And it's good. It's this record's a great record. And because of listening to this record, I'm listening to his other records and really seeing, his whole scope of his career.
Cool, man. Well, let's get into the tracks. Let's get into the meat of it and start and pull it away a little bit, each one, and then dissect it just a tad. So the opening track is it was the last single from this album, and it's Pocket of a Clown.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know what? That's a perfect single.
Yeah, it is.
It's got that. It has that that kind of contemporary through that 1993 country sound, but yet it still has very much the classical country roots that you can clearly hear.
Yeah.
From like the 50s and 60s kind of stuff, and it's like I like the ooh ah, the kind of
that's great. That takes you right back into time. And the shuffle beat is like just you can't beat it, man. It's a great song. It is, and it's a great way to start a record off.
Absolutely, man. That's another thing. This album has some really good. It was put together really well, and it's structured really well. And a lot of times, people don't think about how albums are. You need a good flow. Right. You just think that this is how they're. It's not how they're recorded. It's not how the songs are written or recorded, but it's how it's put together.
Right.
And traditionally, there were two sides, when it was an actual vinyl album, you had two sides to listen to, or even a cassette, was set up like that. But then as MP3s and our CDs, then MP3s came in, it's all straight through. So it's completely different world.
Yeah.
But this one was structured, even with that being said, it was still structured really well for a program of the album. But yeah, that was Inside Pocket of a Clown is, it's just a great single, poppy, and just a lot of fun, Yeah. And it's got touches of rockabilly in there, and I love that. And like that's gonna be you're gonna hear me saying some of the same phrases over and over again about in these songs, and I apologize if that's boring. That's how it is. So, But okay, so yeah, I guess I liked it. It was good.
Yeah, it's great. It's good.
All right,
A thousand miles from nowhere is the next song.
And dude,
it's a great song.
Yeah,
and he's such a great songwriter. And a song like this, where I think that there are other songs, of course, that he's written are fantastic, but a song like this really shows you the level of song mastery that he has. It just is easy listening, it's catchy, super catchy. And it's just got that I want to get in the convertible and drive out in the freaking, out west,
Dude, definitely, man. This is definitely a road trip or song or something you can listen to while you're driving for sure. I mean, it's like a great, anthem for that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It is, to me, this is it's like, I think I said it earlier, like this is one of the two that I was really familiar with, and I really liked and have liked, and it will even occasionally like come up in my brain,
right?
When the radio station in my brain starts playing random stuff, it's one that will pop up.
Yep.
If that makes sense to other people, I really hope it does. But otherwise, okay.
You're not the only one.
Right, but it pops up there, and it's like, it's a good song, And this is, to me, this is like, if I had to name, I mean, this is Dwight Yoakam. This song is Dwight Yoakam. If I had to pinpoint, this is the one of the two songs that I would say, if somebody asked me what it was, I'm like this one, and then there you go.
Yeah.
Agreed. So.
Agreed.
So so that's what I really feel strongly about that one, and it's a banger, man.
Yeah,
that's what's still being said.
Did he won a Grammy for what song was it? Great. He won a Grammy for best vocal performance. Oh, for Ain't That Lonely Ain't That Lonely Yet. Sorry, that was the wrong song. I thought it was 1,000 Miles from Nowhere.
Nope.
But. Yeah, great song.
We'll get to that one.
Yeah.
But that was 1,000 Miles from Nowhere. Is like it got to number 2 in the U.S. country charts and number 3 in the Canadian country charts.
Wow.
So not too shabby.
Great.
So all right. Well, next was Home for Sale. And this one, it's that kind of like, this is that post breakup kind of song,
right?
It's talking about how this is a home that's not going to be used anymore. We don't need it. We're getting rid of it. The past, it's broken.
Right.
It's been left brokenhearted and all that stuff. So
it's a theme. It's a theme I like. Anymore. Right.
Yeah. No, that's great. And it's pure country, is what that is.
It is.
It's very traditional, and it reminds me of George Jones. It reminds me of Hank Sr.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think it's just spot on with that kind of stuff and that kind of feeling. Yeah. And it's a good come down from 1,000 Miles. Like the first two songs are like good up fast mid tempo,
Yep.
And then it's like a Home for Sale. It's more heartfelt and slows it down a little bit,
right,
and kind of lulls you back and like, okay, we're going to keep this party going, but we're just going to pull it back just a little bit,
right. Gonna give you a little something different, different.
Some Miller on,
which brings us to the next one. The next song is This Time, which is another different flavor. This is a honky tonk song.
Yes, it is.
And it is, it's just got that thing. There's so much attitude. It's just so much attitude. I think that was the big draw for me. Like when the first time I listened to the record, like I loved the standouts, of course, more of the singles, but like this one was just like, fuck yeah, man. This is like, this is just, when I think of, Dwight Yoakam has this air of cool. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, indeed.
Even though, like, when you look at him,
yeah,
it's the furthest thing from cool that you think he is. You know what I'm saying? But this really captures his persona, man. You know, and like I said before, the vocal acrobatics, man, that he's doing, it's not easy to do what he's doing with his voice on this song. It's really, really quality, man. Great shit.
Totally, dude. My notes are that, again, with George Jones and Roy Orbison, man. Yeah. Big time on this. And yeah, it is that honky tonky kind of thing going, and it's just fun, man. Yeah, it's fun. If you could dance to this one a little bit, exactly. You could definitely, sit in your honky tonk.
Exactly. And, you'd get your best buddies. You'd get your best girl out there on the floor, and you'd two step a little. I could see that. Yep.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
And then which leads us to our song number 5, and I hope we're not going through too fast on this, but this is how we're doing it. But I think we both liked it so much that it's just kind of flowing a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
Two Doors Down. This is definitely a George Jones, Hank Sr., Conway Twitty, Randy Travis kind of drinking song.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. This really does encapsulate that. It's a drinking song for sure. Just great. Again, the production again on this is just I love that they were able to sort of capture the nuance of each sort of song and give it what it needed. This is one of those.
Yeah. And this is a good a pairing with Home for Sale, and then we picked up a little bit with This Time, and then we go back to oh wow, I'm lonely, but you know what, Barry, I ain't that lonely yet, which is track number 6. That was terrible transition, but there you have it.
That was fantastic. Ain't That Lonely Yet is another quintessential Dwight Yoakam type songs. I love the fact that, like, in the beginning, this song is about a breakup that happens, and the other person is maybe a bit more fond of the other person, and so they get lonely one night and want to get together, and the other side of that is, hey man, I'm not that lonely. You know what I mean? I just love that. I love that sentiment of it, and it's such a great song. This is another song that, to me, we heard a lot, back in the day, but listening to it now in context of the record and knowing him a little bit more, now that we've, done a little bit of listening, it's like a freaking great song, man. It's a great song, and like I've said it a few times, but he's a great songwriter, man. And this just another highlight, another shining moment.
Absolutely. Well, dude, there's not really any bad songs.
There's no
on
clunkers.
This album.
Yeah,
they're really not. No. I mean, like he put it all out into this, and like this is why, like, this song almost half. It had this album had 11 songs. Half of them were singles, and of those singles, like
half of the songs were singles.
There are 5 singles from this album, from an 11-song album, dude. 3 of them placed at number 2 on the top charts. Ain't That Lonely Yet was number 2, was number 1 in Canada, in the country charts, and 1,000 Miles from Nowhere and Fast as You, which will be coming up on here in just a sec. All 3 of those were top 2, out of their top 100, and then the next Pocket of a Clown got to 22, but it got to 4 in Canada. Canada loves Dwight Yoakam. Yeah, apparently
that's awesome,
and rightfully so.
Yeah,
and then Try Not to Look So Pretty got to 14, but I mean, still, like, over 93, 94 is when those singles came out. I mean, but that's a lot to come out of an album.
Big time. You're lucky if you get 2 singles.
Exactly.
I mean, honestly, especially back then too, because people were very quick to go through stuff, and if it wasn't hitting, then you're screwed. So he had 5, and that's impressive, man. I did not know that. That's amazing, man. But so the next song is King of Fools, which is another great song.
I mean, basically same things that we've said about Ain't That Lonely Yet. This is a song about, this is about the guy who's like, he's in love with the girl and he will let her do whatever it is.
Right.
Her bad behavior, flirting with other guys, hooking up with other guys, whatever, he's just gonna let her get away with it because he's in love with her.
Right.
And he wants to, have that kind of connection to it. And I think we've all been there. We've all been there in some way, shape, or form. Maybe just one time, maybe a lot of times, but we've all been in there. But I mean, this song really like encapsulates it. It really gets it, and where he's like, I'll let you do this. I'm aware that this is happening because I am aware that I'm the king of fools. And I understand how sad that is.
Well, a man is usually the king of fools. I mean, it's just kind of how it works out, man.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when love's around.
It's so hard, man.
Thought of it.
We're all idiots for sure.
Yeah. But again, this is that kind of that Randy Travis, Clint Black kind of stuff that and Roy Orbison, that this is the, again, this is the outsider pop, but still very pop country for, at the time. So.
Right.
All right. So then moving on, next is, to me, the biggest standout track. Is Fast As You.
It's freaking good. Yeah. Another song about, wishing that he could break hearts like this young lady that he's speaking of, but he just doesn't have the capacity to do that, and it's just when you have your heart broken and there's just not a goddamn thing you can do about it. It's just, you would write this. If you could write a song about that, it's what you'd write. And you see that there is, a common thread that's running through the record,
Yeah, for sure.
It's all about relationships,
Yeah. And it's country for sure, so.
Yeah.
I mean, that's stereotype, but it's there.
It's the human condition, man. That's why great country music. I get so pissed off when people are like, "Oh, I fucking hate country music, man. It's fucking, you all talk about the same shit." Yeah, if you're listening to bad art, it's going to be bad. But somebody that does what he does so well, and if you close your eyes and you listen to what is going on. He is that thing, man. He puts on that persona, he gets to that thing that is so rich. It's so rich, and if you can imitate someone like to the point of it becomes your own thing, there's just nothing better. There's no better way to do it. I think he's done it well.
I think this. It starts off with that kind of that guitar line.
Yep.
That carries it through.
Yep.
And then you come in, it's got the drums that are like, get your toe tapping really quick, man.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, wow, this is fun. This is a sunny afternoon. Again, top down on a convertible or in a pickup truck with your arm hanging out the side. And just, cruising around, nowhere particular to go, but just having a good time. And this is definitely one of those kinds of songs.
Exactly.
And it's got that, it's got a pop sensibility to it because it is it's super catchy.
Yeah.
But it's also got a little bit of that kind of old school, rockabilly kind of stuff to it,
Right.
And, just so good, man. And I don't know. It's one of those that I'm finding it hard to describe because it's just like you hear it, you get it. It gets inside you. You feel it, and you know it, and you acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah.
It cooks a little bit too. It cooks. It just churns. It churns, man. You know, it's a freight train. It's a freight train.
And it's the vocals on it are so again so country. Yeah. But in the best way possible, because you get you know, that kind of
it's great. No, it's great, man.
It's so good. Dude.
He's so in the pocket with it. He's just it's just great. It's great, man.
Yeah, this is like this is the peak for me. This is like we've built it all the way up, and this is in fact it's like it's gotten through a lot of the emotions that have been kind of presented throughout this, you know. Right. It's gotten through all of this stuff, and it's almost a little bit snarky. Yeah, you know?
Exactly, it's a little bit, man. It's got that punk rock
mouth kind of.
It's got that punk rock thing. Yeah,
I said exactly. I don't know why I couldn't pinpoint that, but it's definitely kind of punk attitude towards it.
Well, and if you look at his history, you know, he played in a lot of clubs with the punk bands, man, and he got a good following that way because those crowds that would come see the other bands are like, fuck, this guy's like the real deal. He's doing great, like real deal, raw stuff, raw country stuff. And you hear that in you know, that's just another layer to him that is, it makes him who he is. It makes him the superstar that he is. And and to be able to go from that and then now you dial it back down, you go into something a little bit more solemn, like Try Not to Look So Pretty, the next song. It's just it's kind of a heartbreaker of just like it's so painful to just have someone that you love so much that is just in your eyes so beautiful that it makes you a freaking idiot. And we talked about that before. It's kind of in one of those, you know, theme that's there, but it's like this song really kind of puts the bow on that idea.
Yeah, this is a much more, you know, it's more of a ballad. Yeah. And it's more of a kind of, it's got the same feel as kind of like King of Fools. Yeah. But it's also, you know, it's that kind of acknowledging of, I'm not over you. Please, you know, don't toy with me.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
Exactly.
You know? Because I'm going to be honest with you. Try not to look so pretty next time you're. You know, it's just like
Right.
So,
and I'll try not to be an idiot. You know. Yeah. Oh, great, man. So that brings us to the next song, which is Wild Ride.
Now, here's your honky tonk.
Yes.
This is when we're getting out.
You know what I love about this song, man? This is where the rockabilly starts to kick in, man. That slightly distorted vocal, you got the slapback delay on the vocal. It sound like if you listen to Elvis from the 50s, you know what I mean? Like it's what you picture like a cool, you know, sort of rock thing going on here. It's great.
There's a lot of Elvis in this album.
Big time.
But this one, it to me, it's got some of that. It's got all that the rockabilly, the honky tonk stuff. It's got a little bit of that kind of 70s country rock that was going on with the Eagles. Yeah. You know?
Right.
It also has some. It's got some of that when the Rolling Stones got a little more bluesy,
man. Agreed.
And country, even they got some weird country albums, and that's what this reminds me of.
That's very true.
Backing vocals.
Yeah, exactly. Because you got that guitar riff, the yeah, just hits hard like a Stones riff. Dude. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Great song.
Yeah, that was that's one of the benefits of listening to these things multiple times before we really review it. Is I was literally, before we recorded, driving home, and I was listening to the last 3 cuts on this album, and just because I wanted to really I wanted to refresh them, but there were ones I didn't listen to as much because honestly, I get to number 8, I get to Fast as You, and I'm just like, yeah, and I'm like, okay, I can taper off now. I don't need to pay attention as much anymore.
Yeah.
But
they're solid. Yeah, they're solid songs toward the end. Yeah.
But then we get to but it was when I got to this one again. It's like, oh, I hear the Stones in this. I hear that kind of stuff that I would.
So true.
Wasn't quite there before.
So true, man. So true. Again, I mean, how many? They always say, if you want to be great at anything, go back and listen to the guys that were doing it first.
Yeah.
And you can tell he's done his homework, man.
Oh, yeah. Big time. He knows what he's doing. And that's why you hear all the classics, all the giants.
Yep.
He's standing on the shoulders of giants, but he's doing it purposely and he acknowledges it in the music.
Right.
But he also will, he'll tell you himself, I'm sure. Yep. I've heard him talk a few times. He knows what it's all about and people understand it. And that's one of the big appeals of him that he has is that he's got this sensibility of being new and contemporary and of the times, but also drawing so closely and so much and being so informed by the best of the past.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
All right, well, that leads us down to Lonesome Roads, man. This is the last number 11. That's the last track on the album.
It's another lonesome sort of, deserty kind of a feel, which that does not need to be lost on the listener, because I'm sure people they've maybe you've never heard Dwight Yoakam or whatever, but the Bakersfield sound, Bakersfield, California, was known for country music also, and there was a lot of great shit that came out of there, but it does have that sort of just that wanting, that that deserty kind of, just like with that steel guitar, man, is just something so just nice, and you kind of let your mind go, just another sort of it's a beautiful, got some violin in there, an acoustic track for the most of it, but just a great, again, goddamn, his vocal hooks are so good, man. Yeah, this is a great, it's a down tempo, it's very traditional, country sound on this. It's a great closing track. It is,
because it just wraps it right up.
It does, man. Puts a button on it, man.
Yep. And it's like, like that the slide guitar, all of this instrumentation on this one. It's just so.
And by the way, the slide, the lap steel guitar is not an easy instrument to play, man. I mean, it can't go without saying, that all of these guys, music wise, just playing, are just heavy hitters. They bring it, and all across the whole record. They were able, in my opinion, man, they brought a bunch of different elements from across the board to the record that makes it, there is an art to writing a record and thought. That's why people still make full-length records. I know that people make a lot of EPs now, and they do just a lot of single, releases and stuff like that. But the reason why true artists still make records is because they understand how a record works and what a record represents. It represents a piece of time, and if you do it right and you put it together the way that he's done it, I mean, you can just tell that not anything was overlooked. Every detail of the thing was put to use.
Yeah, nothing left out on this album, man. And this was like a go for broke kind of thing, it seems. And like he left it, everything was there. And this last Lonesome Roads is that perfect kind of, it's the end of the night, the bar is closing, you know, you go home, or you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, you know, sweeping up all the cigarette butts and the bottle caps and everything.
Yep.
And, you know, and while the single cowboy is on his slowly moving horse playing his song as he's going across the prairie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is.
It invokes that kind of imagery to me as well.
It does. It does, man. Yeah. So, I mean, all in all, just a great record. And
yeah,
again, I'll say that, you know, I was sort of a fan removed. I always liked what I heard, you know, of course, you know, later on in my life, I always like, oh man, you know what? I really like what he does, man. I think I could get into his shit, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when the opportunity came up to do this, and we had a chance to listen to these records, man, I was really excited that we had this on the list, man.
Yeah. Yeah. This was a gem for sure. And what's so nice is how it was so opposite of our first with Zappa. So, and our responses are are similar, but obviously we're more positive on this. So,
well, I mean, you can't help kind of what you are drawn to, and and just like kind of your DNA makeup on these things, you know, it you can't force something. Now, I've got a quick story about Dwight Yoakam real quick.
Oh.
So this was a while back. This was probably 2004. I'm going to say 2004. I took a plane to Los Angeles, okay? And this was the time when I was living in Milwaukee.
Okay.
And on my plane out to LA was Screech from what's that big TV show?
Dustin Diamond from Saved by the Bell.
Saved by the Bell. Yeah. He was living in Milwaukee, but he was on my flight. And so we touched down, which, you know, it's whatever. And then we touched down in LA, and I go down to baggage claim. And who do I see at baggage claim? Brandy, the pop singer. Brandy. She's there. I'm like, well, shit. Okay. There's two people that I wouldn't have pictured seeing. So then I get my shit, I go to the hotel, and I go down the street to the diner, and I go to the diner, and I'm eating, and I look over, and this beautiful, you know, black man was sitting there, and I was like, he looks like a statue. And I sit there and I looked at him, and I'm like, I know that guy. Turns out it's Marcus Allen, the ex running back.
Football.
The football player.
Yeah. Wow.
And dude, and let me just tell you, he's as beautiful in person as he is on TV, man. I mean, he just looks like, you know, like just carved out of stone. Well, so my friend Lewis comes into town, and I go pick him up, and we're in a van, and we're driving down the road, and I'm like, dude, get this, man. Screech was on my flight. I saw Brandy at baggage claim. I went to the diner. I saw Marcus Allen. And then Lewis and I, right then at that time, I had to turn around because I'd missed where we were supposed to go. And I pull into this random apartment complex, right, in Los Angeles. I pull in, and none other than Dwight Yoakam is getting into his BMW or Mercedes, whatever the car was. He's got no hat on, but it was Dwight Yoakam. I'm like,
yeah.
And I looked over at Lewis and I said, and Dwight Yoakam, there you go. In one freaking day.
Dude, that's pretty amazing.
Isn't that funny, man? That's my Dwight Yoakam story.
Dude, Dwight Yoakam, man, like, you know, beyond being an incredible musician, he's also, dude, he's a great actor.
Yeah, dude. He's been in some
Sling Blade?
Yep. Yeah.
And he was on the X-Files?
Yeah.
I think it was the X-Files or something where he played somebody from...
Right. He's been on a few, man.
He played somebody... He was in a movie where he played somebody that had like a farmer in Roswell, like one of the people that found like
this yeah,
which is weird. So now we can link this back to our other show since it's now thematically there's a link. So
oh, that's funny, man. But yeah, so it's so that was my story, and awesome, I'm sticking to it.
Cool. That's great. That's a great story for sure. And one I never heard, man.
Yeah, I know. I just, as we were talking, I'm like, God, I got to tell that story, man.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. All right. Well,
I think it's time to take a spin, right?
Yeah, dude. I think we've thoroughly covered Dwight and Frank, and now it is time to randomly select our next album.
Yes, and so we have what I'm doing right now is I am spinning the number generator, and we have right now.
Wait a minute.
Yep.
I didn't hear that spin.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes.
All right, tell me when.
Go.
All right, Bear, and roll that wheel, Bear.
And our winner is number 36.
And what is number 36?
Willie Nelson.
Willie Nelson. All right.
Willie Nelson. So what we're going to do is we are going to find a Willie Nelson record, and we're going to dive into it.
I think we're probably going to have to go with Redheaded Stranger.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. Sounds good
that's one of the most well-known Willie albums. So
okay.
We'll have to go with that. So cool.
So,
all right. Well, another country legend.
Great.
And we'll go with Redheaded Stranger. And
let's let's tell the people kind of what we have on our list right now. This is a running list, by the way.
Yeah, throw out some of the randos that we've got there.
Okay, so these are kind of this is in no particular order at all. We've got the Grateful Dead. That's on our list. We have, I'll just kind of cherry pick. We've got Kiss on our list, which surprisingly, neither one of us are big Kiss fans. Of course, we know who Kiss is. Of course, we know all that, but we've never really done a deep dive on Kiss. We have Rites of Spring, known as one of the first emo bands.
Yes. And also part of the Fugazi family, one of the pre-Fugazi bands.
That's right. Washington, D.C. representing hard. And then we got hardcore. Yep, exactly. We've got Venom. We've got Johan Johansson. Mm-hmm. We've got Sunny Day Real Estate. We've got the Deftones. We've got Miles Davis. We've got Charlie Parker. We got the Wu-Tang Clan, which I'm a big Wu-Tang guy. Love the Wu-Tang Clan. We got the Minutemen. We got the Dead Boys. We got Howlin' Wolf. We got Operation Ivy. We got Hank Williams Sr. We've got Caius. We've got Ghost. We've got Reverend Horton Heat. I mean, we've got a lot of great. That's just a few, guys. That's just a few. So we're kind of all over the map, and we're gonna continue drawing these random out of a number generator. We're gonna continue spinning the wheel for the Spinjamarama records review.
All right. Well, hey, everybody, thanks for listening. Check us out on our regular weekly podcast, What's Your Weird Story? You can also follow us on Twitter and on the Instagram and all the social media stuff. We'll probably have maybe we'll have a Facebook thing. Who knows? But follow us everywhere. Email us at spinjamarama at gmail.com. It's SPINJAMARAMA. Spinjamarama. I had to spell it out. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to our first double episode of Spinjamarama. We hope you enjoyed it. Do let us know what you think on our social media. Or Spinjamarama also is out there on Twitter and on Instagram. So let us know. We would like to, if this is cool. If not, we can pack it up and not worry about it or what. So.
Yeah, come back next week and we'll get back to what we do on the norm, I guess.
for us,
for
the
what-
norm
yeah.
for us, for the weird.
Yeah,
So
right.
come back again, and next week, Weirdzilla will be back at it. Until then, be safe.
Be weird.